Hi, and welcome to Quick Charge. Tonight I am interviewing Andy Crow. He is another TikTok content creator and a Christian youth pastor from Terre Haute, Indiana. It was an absolute pleasure and joy to interview him, and he does touch on some subjects which might hit close to home for some and might be tough listening for some, but it is also a joy to hear his faith and his passion for God and how God has steered him through those times. So please join us, watch all the way through, and hold Andy in your prayers. Here goes. So welcome everyone to Quick Charge, and we are in a series called Guerrilla Christian, and for this episode I have reached out to the world of TikTok once again, and have reached Andy, who has come to us all the way. Oh, he's gonna introduce himself in a second. I can't say any details, but thank you, Andy, so much for being here, and it is a real pleasure to once again. I have to say, when you follow somebody on TikTok, they all instantly become a celebrity, or at least that's to me anyway. So I love catching up on what you're doing and what you're putting out there, and it is always fun and always makes me chuckle. So thank you for that. Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody, and then we'll ask you the big question?
Yeah. My name is Andy Crow. I am in Terre Haute, Indiana, over in the United States. I've lived here about 10 years this year, actually. Originally from Kentucky, in a small little hillbilly town. I am married to my beautiful wife, Ashley. We have 2 sons. My oldest will turn 8 in September, and his name is Turner. My youngest is Mason, and he'll be 5 in October. So we're all on the same maturity level. So if you could pray for my wife, that would be absolutely amazing, because she has 3 little boys at home. But yeah, I'm a youth pastor here in town. I have a smaller youth group, but very close. And my title is family pastor. So I birthed to college. If you are in that age group, we probably hang out a lot. So.
Nice. So we're going to kick off with the big question that I like to ask, especially at the minute, and that is, why, Andy, are you a Christian?
That's the $1 million question. So, you're going to get all kinds of answers for that. Some are really happy. Some are like, holy good Lord. Yeah. And so I accepted Christ when I was in 6th grade.
What age is that for? Because we don't have 6th grade, as it were. We have sort of slightly different.
So that was 96, carry the 4. I was like 12.
Cool.
12, maybe. I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I knew who God was. And I knew I'd gone to vacation Bible school, but that was more just to please get my kid out of the house. So yeah. And so my home life wasn't great. My stepdad drank and made things not fun at home. Lots of fighting and yelling, and I have 2 little siblings. I have a sister that's 8 years younger than me and a brother that is 10 years younger than me. And so I protected them a lot and tried to shelter them from a lot of that. And it got to be a lot for me. So much to the fact that I would look for places to go where I didn't have to be home. And I knew that I always could go to my aunt and uncle's house on Friday, and then I would come home on Sunday. But once my aunt and uncle started going to church, this light bulb went off. Well, if I stay and go to church on Sundays and then went to youth group on Sunday nights, then I could just stay the night with them one more night, and I would just go home after school on Monday. So I was playing the system. Like, I did not want to go home.
Yeah.
And so, they started going to church there in this little town called McHenry, Kentucky, a town of like 500 people, maybe. And so, I would stay the night with them and hang out with them. And they eventually, were known as my weekend parents. It's my mom's sister. And so I started going to church with them, like I said, when I was 12-ish. And something hit me one day, and I went up to the altar and I was like, I don't know what you have. I don't know what's going on. I have so many questions, but I know I want to be a part of it. And part of that was one of the sermons that he had done recently at that time was, this broken home, this brokenness. And the only thing that can really fix it is Jesus. And at 12, I'm like, I don't know how he's doing that, but I know that I want that.
Mm.
And so, I told my cousin, who is 6 months older than me, so we're more like brother and sister. I was like, hey, like, I'm going to go. Can you come with me? And so me and Sarah walked up to because, we're still doing the old fashioned altar call. And so we walk up front and I tell Scott, I'm like, hey, I don't know what's going on. I don't know even what I'm doing. I need this.
Yeah.
And so I said some ridiculous prayer that I still to this day don't know what I said. And he's like, hey, welcome to the family. And I'm like, well, okay. And from then on, I just engulfed. And I went to adult Bible study. I went to youth Bible study. I taught children's church. I was just engulfed in it, wanting to be a part of it. And then I eventually learned, I realized all that he was talking about was exactly what I needed and how it fit in my life and has helped me later in years to reconcile those things with my stepfather and whatnot. So that's been really cool.
Yeah.
See between, God's grace alone and then the birth of my son, that really helped reconcile that much later in life. But yeah, I mean, that's the how and the why.
Yeah. Cool. And so it was, I guess some of our reactions and stuff to that question have put it into context of here's just a reason why I follow him now. And others have been, well, there was a process of working it out. But for you, it was a real, I want that. It was like a real gut thing of.
Yeah, the analogy that's often used, we're all running from something to something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to run from something and had no clue what I was running to. I just knew that if I ran to this, it wouldn't be better, but it would be better. If that, I know that makes verbally makes no sense, but in my head it does. Like it's not going to physically be better here, but there's gonna be a new love and a new appreciation for things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what got me excited. I was running from something. And by the grace of God, it was God that I was running to and just didn't realize it until, I ran face first into his chest.
Cool. And so as a 12-year-old then, having, as you said, running from what is a rough time at home and what something that in Dungannon at the minute, as we're hearing stories through mentoring and through other things, we're kind of establishing that it's not a completely uncommon story. And especially over lockdown, a lot of those things have been perpetuated and maybe made a little bit worse. What then happened as that 12-year-old going back in to that kind of setting when you've just gone, I'm following Jesus? Like, how did that all work out?
Yeah, so it was a slow fade. I mean, I said all the right things and I checked all the boxes. My life didn't completely turn right then. But yeah, like so it was a slow fade. I was trying to. So then I found Jesus. I want to follow him, but then again, I also want to understand like why is this happening? Like I didn't meet my dad till I was 29, 30 years old. Even though he lived 5 minutes from where I grew up.
Wow.
So I'm trying to figure out like why did this happen? Why do I see my friends go through X, Y, and Z? And if this is just a God of love, where's that love? Right? And the things that are so obvious are generally the things we don't see. It's like when my 5-year-old comes up and is like, Dad, hey, I can't find my blanket. I'm like, well, it's in the middle of your floor. No, it's not. Well, it is. It's just not where you were looking, right? You're looking to the left of the middle and it's right in the middle. And so the things that are so obvious, God's grace and his love, like, yeah, I saw the bad that was going on, like the constant fighting and yelling and things being thrown, but I didn't see his protection and his just willingness to be there. One of those things that he's there, we just got to cry out for him to come get us. It's like the story of the disciples in the boat. Jesus is walking up on the water, and Peter, being the genius that he is like, well, if that's really you, let me come out on the water. And he's like, okay. And so then he walks out and he's like, yeah, right. And then he starts to sink because he looks away. He takes his eye off of Jesus. And again, I tell my youth group all the time, I think Jesus was sarcastic and ribbed on him. And so he's probably like, oh, here we go again, Peter sinking. And, all Peter had to do at that point was to yell out, and Jesus reaches out and brings him back up, and he's safe. All Jesus saw was the wind and the water like beating on him because he looked slightly to the left.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is my right.
Yeah. It was left for me.
We're good. We're good.
I don't know how it's going to come out on here, but
he looks slightly away, and he's never mind that this loving protector, is right there. He doesn't see it, and so he freaks out. And so, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but I went on a tangent quick.
It's cool. It sounded good. So you're 12. You're going back into that setting, and it's a slow process for you. And I've heard. For some reason, well, I know why, but my TikTok feed is filled up with or slightly argumentative Christians. It may be because I am an argumentative Christian, but just for fun most of the time, just because it's a bit of a laugh. You go, well, what about this?
I can be that guy.
Yeah,
I definitely enjoy that.
The big buzzword at the minute is sanctification, and it seems to keep coming up, and that's a big word.
Yeah.
But and I don't think we've even ventured to use said big word in any of my teaching yet, because it's just too big for me sometimes. But it's this process of becoming more Christ-like, I guess, is a good way of putting it. For you then, unlike many of the testimonies that we might hear that are super dramatic, and yours started off dramatic, I guess. For you, it was that sanctification process, becoming more Christ-like, has been a discipleship process of just learning bit by bit and discovery bit by bit, and coming more to continually re-looking at Jesus, I'm guessing, as the center.
Yeah, so absolutely. So I have been uber blessed with God putting certain people in my life that played different roles that I needed. So right after I was saved, I started going to this, maybe a couple of years later, this really small, like, church of 30 that my great grandmother went to. She got to where she couldn't drive. And so I would drive. It was a church right up the street from our house that she had been going to, I think, since Moses was there.
That's where it was.
That's where it was. Yeah. Hartford, Kentucky, man. She was old. And so she was like, hey, can you start going to church with me? I was like, absolutely, let's go. And this little pastor, he actually married my wife and I. When I say little, like, he's a wee child. He comes up to about my shoulders.
He might be the same height as me. So
and I'm a big guy anyway. Like, in high school, I was always the big guy. Like, right now, I'm 380. I'm a big dude. I was waiting for sumo to be a college sport so I could go varsity. But George was like 5'5", 5'6", maybe 130 pounds. Like, I dwarfed him even in high school. But he saw something in me that I didn't see. And so he kind of took me under his wing. And it was real quick to explain stuff, real quick to give me responsibility, knowing that I needed that to be able to do something. So the people that, and this could be a wrong philosophy, but it's always been mine, like, the people that need the leadership, like, that need to lead and to do this, aren't always the most qualified, right? But God doesn't call the qualified. God qualifies the called.
Amen.
So George took me aside and he's like, "Hey, I want you to help lead the music." And which meant if the music minister was gone, like that was on me. And so here I am at 16 leading songs. And when the music minister was gone, his wife was gone, which meant we had no piano player. So like I'm playing the trumpet with one hand and conducting with the other to this church of like 20. And so he teach me this responsibility and how to love people where they're at, even though like they will test you to your core. Like you still have to love them. And so and then when I left Kentucky and moved to Iowa, there were some guys there that really, really poured into me and became more like, so George, he played the spiritual father role in my life. And so then some people in Iowa and even here in Indiana, now that we've been here, I've had some people that play the spiritual brother role, like big brother, that really have just poured into me. My senior pastor, so I've been at this church for 2 years. My senior pastor here is one of the few people that make me feel small. He's 6'8".
Wow.
Well, I'm 5'10", and I'm like, oh, hi, tree. He's nowhere near as wide as I am. Like to call us the deep and wide connection. He's very tall and very wide. So, but he has really challenged my thinking. And like some things that I thought that I knew and had hammered down, like he's really been like, well, is it really that way, or what if it's this way? And just getting me to think.
Those really annoying questions that usually youth workers ask.
Yeah, the ones that we usually ask the kids are now getting asked to me. Oh, it's my job. And so like my sanctification process, and it's still going, right? We're never going to get there this side of glory. But it's been really discipleship led, man. I've had people that have poured into me, which has allowed me to then pour into other people. So
it sounds like your experience of both childhood, coming to faith, and then that process for you, like it sounds very much like God was just gearing you to be a youth worker.
Oh, absolutely.
So how does that all fit in with what you do now? So
it's funny you ask. I knew before 18, I was going to do something. I was going to work with God somehow. I always thought that was going to be in the secular world. So I went to college to be a social worker. My goal was to help restore families, right? Like I was going to take kids and then work with my butt off with those families to get the kids back home.
Yeah.
My wife was terrified because she thought I'd just bring home kids like cats. Like, look, I got another one. Let's feed it. Which probably would have happened. But right out of college, I went into sales. I ran some restaurants. I ran a furniture store, and then got hooked up with a staffing agency where we found people jobs. And it was a faith-based staffing agency. And so, I did a lot of praying with people. I would hire people, fire people. I would fire them and then pray with them and then help them find another job. Really the coolest job I think I've ever had.
That was really weird.
And then I came to this the church I'm serving at now. This is my second stint here. The pastor that was here before was like, "Hey, we need a youth, a children's pastor. You're our guy." And I was like, "What makes me your guy?" And he's like, "Because you're an idiot." I was like, "Do what?"
It's nice to get recognition.
I know. I was like, I've been recognized for a lot of things, but finally somebody gets me. You can connect with the kids because you just don't care. Like you're going to make a fool out of yourself. And I'm like, absolutely I am. And so I did that for a little while, part-time, still doing the staffing thing. And then we thought we might be moving. So I took a different job and went into a more HR-based field, which was similar to what I was doing. And then we changed churches and became a youth, the youth guy there. And we had an interim pastor that called or came in, and we had him over for dinner. And he was like, "Hey, Andy, I see you as more than just a youth worker." I said, oh, okay, cool. I'm a person too. Yes.
Well done.
He was like, you walk into the church and like people just like move toward you. I said, that's called gravity. I'm large. Everything just circles me. Like stay with me and I'll teach you science. And then he told me to shut up. And I said, okay. He was like, I really feel like you're going to be more than a youth worker. Like, I feel like you're going to be a pastor and possibly a church planter. Is that something that you feel like God's calling you to do? And I said, look, if God's calling me to be a pastor, he's calling the wrong phone because my phone's not ringing. Fast forward 6 months, I'm being ordained as a pastor. And then, took a youth pastor job back at Agape where I'm at now, shortly after that. So, I mean, yeah, like this was all God gearing me to be where I'm at now. I think if I hadn't dealt with some of the people that I had dealt with in previous lines of work, like the restaurant, like I ran fast food restaurants, and I used to hate when church buses would come in. I'm like, damn church kids. And like I was in church, and a lot of times it was my church kids that were coming in, but I'm like, and so like, you need to deal with that. So now when we come in, like I put the fear of God in my youth. I'm like, look, we're not going to destroy this place. It's going to be cleaner when we leave than when we got here. We're going to treat and then
a full-on sermon before they leave the bus.
Before we get the bus, let's have an altar call. And then, just all the lines of work that I've done have taught me to deal with people. And being a pastor, like, it's glorified really, like, oh, you just work 1 day a week. You stand up in a pulpit and you preach, or, you're a glorified babysitter. And I'm like, but I deal with a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I'm dealing with you right now. So, so all of the work that I've done up until this point has really prepared me and led me to work with students and their families and the community and things like that, and be able to see big picture things that, 20 years ago, right? I would have been 16. Yeah. 20 years ago, sitting in a car with some friends, like I don't see the issue with that at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm very narrow-minded, small picture. 20 years later, I see a problem with that. Right? Go home. Nothing good happens that late.
Nothing good happens after 2 a.m. What was that? That was from How I Met Your Mother. I think that was an whole episode of How I Met Your Mother.
That episode changed my view of ministry.
I was just trying to place the reference there. Like, where is that? I've heard that. Yeah. I've watched too much TV also.
If nothing else came out of this pandemic, I have caught up on TV that I never knew I needed to watch.
Absolutely. I'm glad of it. Cool. I'm kind of running out of questions because I think we could chat basically forever. But if you were to, because we're finding more and more young people in the same situation you were in, and probably quite a few of them who either don't know anything of God, pardon me, or are just, in that place of not quite seeing him. What would your advice be for those young people where they are now?
Yeah, so for the young people, hold on, right? Just hold on. Find something that's appropriate, and hold on. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. Like when I kept everything in, like the only people that knew about my situation were the people involved in my situation, right? There's my family, and then my extended family knew a little bit, but I never told my friends, which whatever. And I never told an adult. And I, there were things like, and if I could go back, I probably still wouldn't tell a lot of adults.
Yeah.
Just out of fear of what could happen. But I think maybe if there was that youth pastor or something that I could have reached out to. I tell my kids all the time now, like, once I'm your youth pastor, you don't get rid of me ever. Like you have officially become my babies.
Yeah.
Like that weird uncle that's just going to show up at all of your things, even when you're 40, like and getting married.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there. And if you don't let me do your wedding, I'll just stand up and act like I'm going to do it. That's fine. But I've told kids, like, if crap happens, call me. Like, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to bail you out of everything. Like, there's going to be consequences, and we're going to face those, but we're going to face those consequences together.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
You need somebody to talk to just to get crap off your chest. Like, I'm your dude.
Yep.
You get arrested at 2:01 because nothing good happens at 2 a.m. So you get arrested at 2:01. You call me, like, I'm going to post your bail. Your parents going to pay me back. You're going to get yelled at, but I'm going to be there when it happens.
Yep.
Right? And I'm gonna walk through this with you. And so, my challenge to find somebody to walk through it with you. Reach out. There are youth workers everywhere that are dying for interaction with the youth, because this is what we do. And I think when people hear that, they just want to talk Jesus, man. Yeah, well, yes,
Yeah,
okay,
sort of, yeah.
Don't hear what I'm not saying. Like, I'll talk Jesus all day long, but if we don't talk Jesus, but maybe one time out of the 4 times we get together, I'm good with that.
Yeah,
because nothing happens without a relationship.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, you have to know me better than just, so none of my kids call me Pastor Andy. It's just Andy, right? I don't have that. I have that title, but that's not how they see me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, let's get past the Pastor Andy. Let's get past the hierarchy or whatever, and let's just meet on a personal level.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a nerd at heart. Like, I love cartoons. I still watch wrestling, even though they tell me it's fake. It's real to me, dang it. Mr. Rogers is one of my favorite shows out there. Like, I'm a kid at heart. So let's get to know that. You wanna get me going. Let's talk baseball. Like, I'll talk baseball for days.
Cool.
And so we get past this hierarchy, and I start letting my guard down. So you see inside of me, and then because it's always the older one that's got to let the guard down first, usually. Right? And so once my guard is down, then your guard comes down, and now we know where each other are at, and we can walk through life together and figure out the situations as they're thrown to us.
Cool. I think for a lot of times, when you're going through something rough, what you don't realize is those people who are almost waiting there to be there for you it hurts so much more when you realize somebody could have said to you and you would have been there than when they come to you earlier on and say, this is a terrible situation, I'm going to land you in it with me, and you're like, I'm okay with that, but I'm not okay with finding out later on when there's diddly stuff I can do about it. And you want you want that, and it's messy, but that's ministry, and that's okay.
Life is messy in general, but man, once you get into ministry, like, you need like 4 showers a day. I've had parents question my style a few times. I'm very open with my kids. Like, yeah, man, when I was younger, I did a lot of stupid things. Like, I've done X, I've done this, I've done X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. And I'm very open with that. Part of my testimony is my suicide attempt that I had. And so I tell the kids, like, hey, this is where I was at in my head, and this is what happened. And I've had parents, well, all you're doing is glorifying the sin in your life. I'm like, no, I'm not glorifying it, because if you could hear me in my spiel, like, I'm not happy when I talk about my suicide attempt, right? I'm not happy when I talk about my drug use in high school. There's nothing happy about those memories. But for a lot of kids, they're going through some stuff, and they need to know that an adult isn't just that person that's going to go, well, little Jimmy, it's going to be okay, right? No, I've been where you're sitting, right? I have stood right where you're standing. And it may not be the exact situation. Maybe you zig when I zagged, but I'm right here with you. I've gone through some stuff too, right? I'm not your TV Christian who was converted at 2 years old and then has lived this perfect life up until now, because I have not.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool.
but you have to build those relationships, and
Yeah.
so am I glorifying my past? Absolutely not. But am I letting kids and students in to see, like, okay, so it's not bad to reach out for help. It's okay to let your guard down with certain people. And if I can be that guy, great.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't feel comfortable coming to me, but Joe Schmo over here you feel comfortable with, and he's a safe person that is on the same path, then by all means go talk to him, right? You can come to me and go, hey, I've got some stuff, but because of our relationship, I don't know that it's appropriate that I tell you. Sure, I know some people. Let's go talk to these guys over here.
Yeah.
And so even if I'm just a server, really, I'm expediting who's helping who. Like, I'm good with that. Just let me help in some way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's exciting. It's not something that takes a toll on us either. That putting people in the right place at the right times, like, woo. Okay, last question, because otherwise I'll be up all night again and we'll just keep talking.
I forget while we're talking that there's the time difference, and I'm like, that's not even dinner time. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, it's now 10:15 for me. So
your kids are in bed and you probably want to go soon too, so
it's all good. But last question then is, what is a favorite Bible verse or a meaningful Bible verse that you keep coming back to?
Yeah, so my funny answer, because it is almost dinner, Acts 10:13. Then Peter heard the voice, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." Like, I'm all about that. Let's food. Seriously, the real answer is, be still and know that I'm God. So that's a two-parter. That was my grandma's favorite verse. She had it circled in every Bible she had. She would always come back to that. And she died a few years ago, and she was my person. Right? If I needed anything, she's who I called. If I was having a bad day, let's call Mama. And so that was her favorite verse, and she just would come back to it so many times. Like, I'd be like, Mama, hey, I'm having this problem. You just need to be still. And so that's really, really taken heart. And so doing some studies on that, like, it's really a nice way of saying, just shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Right? Quit being you for a moment and listen to the one that has a plan. And so I recognize that I come up with all these ideas and the way that I want things to go. But I always come back when my life seems like it's in shambles, or I have no answer for anything. Be still.
Yeah.
Be still and know that I'm God. And so that is a verse that has stuck with me for years.
Cool. I don't think anyone has ever come to that verse and just went, easy. No problem. I'll do that.
Yeah, no, and it's something I struggle with. Like, I'll be sitting here having a panic attack over something, and then I'll come to that verse and I'm like, be still. No, you be still.
Yeah.
I don't have time to be still.
Time.
I've got kids coming, I got to feed them, and I have to have a sermon, and I have to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
It's a lot easier to say than to do, but then to just realize, like, he's here, right? Even when we don't see him and we don't feel him, just because we don't feel God doesn't mean he's not here, right? We don't see the wind, but we know it's there. Right? And so, as much as sometimes it's annoying when people are like, well, just be still and know, right? And that is, like, I hate when people say that to me. You have no idea my hatred, but my love for it comes along too, because, like, I do know that he's here and he's gonna take care of me and he's gonna love me, and it's not gonna be the easiest path whatsoever, but we're gonna get through it. And so that has helped a lot.
Cool. That's great. That's really good. Andy, thank you so much for just being open and honest with us. And I feel like we've just scratched the surface with you. There's so much more to find out. So maybe at some point we'll put in another, as long as this hasn't scared you too much, we'll put in another one and we'll maybe talk about something a bit different, and maybe some of that mental health stuff I think would be really good to talk about.
Yeah. Get a hold of me, man. I'm always down for this.
Cool, good stuff. I'm going to pray for you, and then that's us done. So let's pray. God, thank you for Andy's enthusiasm, and thank you for the love that you've put in his heart, and just how you, looking back, how you've steered him or filled him with the right skills and abilities and passions to be able to work with you and for you, to be able to work with people and for people, and to be able to bring them to you and bring you to them. Lord, thank you for that, and every word that's come out of his mouth this evening or this afternoon, or whatever way you want to look at that, given the time difference. Lord, thank you for everything that you do for us. Amen.